I'm Beau Ambur. I'm the Senior Outreach Lead for Design and Technology at Kickstarter with a focus on the West Coast. I get to work with a lot of creators who are doing interesting things with both highly designed products and cool design objects, as well as hardware and electronics and gadgets and all the things. When it comes to mentoring with the Hackaday Prize, I'm really interested to connect with folks that are working on interesting electronic projects and offer any help in early stage prototyping and also rapid iteration and how to leverage things like 3D printed enclosures and starting to think about how to shape the future design that's going to fit for manufacturing and working with other parties. I'm also really interested to bring what I can from the Kickstarter perspective, which is where we're really about telling stories. So understanding the broader narrative of your project and making that connect with your audience so that people aren't just excited about it, they're also excited about talking about it and sharing it with their friends and really building a broad audience to help support the project. The crowdfunding at CES was pretty broad in terms of a lot of Kickstarter creators, and I don't think it's something particularly new. I think we've actually played into the conversation, especially with Eureka Park, which is a lot of smaller startups. Kickstarter has been a way to highlight smaller creators that might not have been able to get the kind of funding that it takes to go to CES. So I think we've helped shape that conversation. CES is obviously consumer focused, which is a bit narrow for what we're trying to do at Kickstarter. But we really feel we've got to engage in the conversation to give people the opportunity to do something different and try out new things. So we're really happy to do that, as well as work with a number of collaborators there, like Hardware Club. We hosted an evening event with them and got to see a lot of cool projects and creators that we might not normally be in touch with. Part of what brought me to Kickstarter and design and technology in particular was that I was really surprised by the types of projects that were showing up there. I mean, I read Hackaday pretty much every day, watch a lot of tech blogs, follow folks on Twitter, and I was seeing projects launch on Kickstarter that I hadn't even heard of before. And so I was surprised that it is really out there in terms of trying new things and helping new projects get off the ground. So I really like, helping create part of the future to better predict it is an interesting place to be. I think there's a lot of great momentum around the open source community that's crossing over with the tools. So for electronics in particular, KiCad has been awesome in terms of being able to develop awesome PCBs and also a lot of artistic creativity of you have people that aren't necessarily traditional engineers and they're really pushing the boundaries of what you can do with copper and silk screen on fiberglass. And there's also a broad network and a lot of bigger companies and organizations that are supporting smaller creators, like DigiKey even releasing a whole bunch of footprints for KiCad to get people off the ground faster. And just the whole network effect of people helping each other out and sharing ideas and pushing projects further faster. So I think if you're an engineer working on a product, it's really important to focus on something that you care about and does something interesting. And that's enough to get traction within a small community and kind of drive a passion project. But at a certain point, you've got to think outside of that and how is it going to appeal to someone who doesn't already know why it's important and what it's trying to do. So definitely talking to a broader audience and getting outside your comfort zone and just getting genuine feedback on how this would be used in the wild and what you might do to make that more accessible to people that haven't been along the journey the whole way through. When you're creating a project, it's definitely critical to have support. And a lot of projects can be done independently, but it's not that much fun to do by yourself. So having folks that can augment your skills in terms of marketing or ease of use or documentation, it's great to build a small team of folks that you can get along with and share ideas and better make your project well-rounded to reach as many people as possible. I've been a Hackaday since long before the prize. I remember when Phil Terone started a long time ago as a much simpler, here's just a project every day. It was literally a Hackaday. And that's since evolved with the Hackaday Prize and Hackaday I/O. And I think the prize, especially with the SuperCon, is a great way to celebrate and come together around new projects and explorations. And I think it's been great that there's been kind of a theme to look in more relevant directions and support the broader community. This year, what I really get from it with the focus on DFM or design for manufacturing is thinking about getting beyond that prototype and really figuring out what it takes to manufacture something at scale with a lot of automation so that you can have more manageable cost. So that's an area that I'm actually not an expert on yet. And I really hope to learn a lot about the process through this over the next few months and think it's fascinating and critical to designing and releasing product at scale. The Hackaday Prize, with the broader support of Supplyframe and their partners, I think is really interesting in terms of opening up more resources. Working with the design lab, working with other partners that really have expertise in certain areas is something that as an individual or small team, you're not gonna have readily available. So I think being able to surface new projects in new areas and get them that support and level of expertise right off the bat is really amazing. From a broader perspective, with Kickstarter in particular, I think it's a really good opportunity to start a project, and you can already get ahead of the game in terms of having some people on board, having the support, having the involvement with the Hackaday Prize community. I think really helps shape an idea and put some momentum behind it, which is what you really need to launch a campaign. There's a number of projects that I'm working on right now, some of which I can't quite talk about yet, but a couple of recent ones that I thought were really cool. One was a hackable phone called iPhone, which I actually found through the broader Hackaday community and was featured there. And then also another cool bench project for people doing electronics called Joule Scope, which is a really neat tool for testing really low DC energy power. iPhone was an interesting project because I actually got insight into that. I found it as a project on Hackaday.io. And that's a really interesting community because you can get direct feedback from people who are really interested in your project, but also you're talking to people that know a lot about the technology that you're using. So you can get really good feedback in terms of both improving and iterating your design, as well as figuring out how to best communicate and message that to the community. So in terms of thinking about more sustainable designs, one of the areas where we see opportunity there is just thinking about how you ship and package things and reducing waste wherever possible in that cycle. Personally, I'm also super interested in DIY hardware and actually get to put a specific focus on that. And I think that's really interesting as well with what's happening with tools, with things that we've seen from years ago, like the Other Mill and Volterra even. There's great hardware that helps you make even better hardware. And I think that's a really neat trend that I'd like to see more of.